Hello, and welcome to In the Light Growing Your Soul with me, Anna Isabel. I'm a psychological astrologer as well as an analytical hypnotherapist. And I'm delighted to welcome my guest today, who is Anna McKerrow. Hello, Anna.
Hello, Anna.
It's always a bit odd when I have another Anna on.
And it must happen fairly frequently nowadays.
No, you're only the second one.
Okay. I feel like our name's getting more common now. It used to be gloriously unusual, but it's still very nice. Yes. Still special.
So I am really happy because I have this fabulous book of yours here. The Path to Healing is Spiral. And the prologue, just the very first page, I was rereading it just now, and it just makes me laugh. But before we get there, I think perhaps the title would be a good place to start. Tell us about the title, The Path to Healing is Spiral.
Okay. Well, so this is a non-fiction book, and it's about healing, and it's about the variety of different healing techniques that I've tried over quite a long period. And so it's partly a memoir as well. So what's been happening to me over that time, how I found those things. So the title is, I think, a realization that I had somewhere in my healing journey. I'm not sure where, but probably a lot of your listeners will recognize this idea or this feeling too. So sometimes when you can feel like I have healed X trauma in my life or something, and you might think, I've put that behind me now, I can move on, I've healed that particular thing from my childhood perhaps. And you have, and you've done valuable healing work, and you've processed through something probably. But what can happen is you can come back around, I think, sometimes. And it's not that you haven't processed those things, but sometimes you come back around to process them on a different level, or with a different perspective, and see things in a different way. I've certainly found that processing grief, for instance, I've kind of done several rounds of that. And it's almost like the healing path it's spiral. It's not a straight line. It's not taking you from A to B to C to D and never going back. It's not that. It's kind of much more self-reflective and circular. So that's kind of where that title was coming from. I'm trying to get across some sense that, in a sense, I think if you say to people, you're never going to be finished healing, because you think, oh God, that's terrible. I really want to finish it. But then it's not a bad thing. It just means that you may continue to revisit some things a few times in different ways, and that's part of the experience. That's how I interpret that anyway.
Well, that is absolutely wonderfully descriptive of the essence of the process. And I have had so many clients who every session they go back to the same incident. They're so surprised because each session they think they dealt with it. And I so many times I've heard people say, oh, not this again.
Yeah.
Because they're in hypnosis and we're tracking a particular feeling. And hey, it goes right back to that initial sensitizing event. And they're sitting there in hypnosis thinking, oh, not again. Not this again.
I'm so over this now.
Like, it was the fifth time that I've come back to this particular incident. But the reason they're back there is not because the work we did before didn't, let's say, stick or work, or the healing didn't happen. But the healing around that incident happened for one specific aspect of the trauma, not all of it. So I would say that sometimes a traumatic event, and keeping in mind that trauma doesn't necessarily mean big trauma, it can mean small throwaway comments that are we forget, and it's in hypnosis, we go back to that comment. And yet the permutations of the effect that it has are like ripples that stretch out in a myriad of ways in life. So we pull on one thread and it leads us back to that event. And then we pull on another thread and it leads us back to that event until we've gone and we have genuinely found all the different threads coming from that one event. And so I would say to anyone who's experiencing things in that way, take heart, don't be disheartened, because clearly this particular thing has affected you in a number of different ways. And there will come a point at which you've processed the whole thing. You've come at it from every possible angle, and then it won't be that anymore. But there it is. Until we've done that, you are going to keep going back to it. And it is a process. So I really like the way you've described that. It's absolutely right.
Oh, thank you. Well, as I say, that's been my experience, and I'm sure it is the experience of many people. And also, as you say, I mean, the thing that I've probably come back to most is bereavement, as in losing my mum, and that's because that's such, you know, a huge rock thrown in the pond, you know, to use your analogy. And I think there are probably things that, you know, I haven't had to come round to as much, and that's the way of things. Although, you know, I'm sure that, you know, you don't want to kind of put a value or size judgment on things, because it depends how profound those things are to you. But I certainly know for me that was a very profound, deep experience that probably still needs, you know, some coming round to.
Well, your book is very personal, also full of humor.
Thanks.
I just the very first page, healing is not always pretty. That made me giggle, and then it goes on, and you describe the kinds of places where healing has taken place.
Yes.
Say, now, I don't know about you, but I tend to imagine healing happening somewhere like a beach in Bali, and there's your fantasy of where healing must take place. And I really, it made me giggle. Because of course, that's not life.
No, sadly not. I wish it was. I wish, you know, I wish we were always on lovely tropical beaches, you know, with crystals, having cocktails, if that cocktails would be nice, and some sort of nice food, and, you know, whatever. But I think in my experience anyway, and but maybe this is because I'm British also, and, you know, I live in Britain. Maybe that, you know, Britain is a peculiarly kind of grey and mundane place or something. Maybe elsewhere in the world, people are having far more exciting experiences. But for me, all of the very profound healing that I had took place in very underwhelming places, you know, so anything from a very ordinary suburban lounge to my two particular favourites. One was a territorial army base, and which is everything that you would imagine it to be and more. And the other one was a room above a mechanic's workshop on an industrial estate. So next to a paint manufacturer, you know, yeah, sadly, very, very underwhelming. But the reason I wanted to really stress that point was because I think it's really, in a way, nice to say to people, look, it's not about being in vogue, and it's not, you know, it's not about necessarily also paying a lot of money for stuff, and for it to be like all like beautiful and aspirational and everything. It's all very, you know, normal people delivering the healing are probably going to be wearing like fleece, you know, and some nice comfortable middle-aged person, or an ex-roofer, you know, who did some amazing healing with me. And in a way, that's quite nice and makes it more accessible, you know, to people, demystifies the whole thing, I suppose, is what I'm trying to go for there.
It's so important, because if we talk about magic, what that is an illustration of is that magic is available and accessible. It's everywhere around us. We don't have to go on some great quest to seek it. We don't have to be looking for the ideal. It's there.
Totally.
It's there in the most unlikely places. And that means that all you have to do is reach.
Exactly. And you don't have to reach very far. And you know, perfection is the enemy of what's that phrase? Perfection is the enemy of doing it. That's not the phrase, by paraphrasing. You know, if you're thinking, oh, it must be beautiful, it must be perfect, or it must be expensive, or I must go to this 5-star spa to have healing, you probably won't ever do it. You know, indeed, if you are, you know, a magical practitioner, if you think, oh, I must buy all the really expensive stuff that I need. No, you can make most of it. I make a lot of stuff out of cardboard and Sharpies and then use it. You know, the important thing is actually doing it. So yeah, one can you can, like anything, get caught in the trap of the perfect thing. But I think it's far more important just to do it. Because whatever you do healing wise, you might think, oh, well, I need to find the perfect modality for me. No, I think you should just do something and then maybe do something else and see what you prefer. But everything will help, you know.
What modality did you most resonate with?
It's difficult to say just one because I've got so much of different ones in different ways. I would say the one that I had the longest relationship with is Reiki, in that's the first alternative therapy that I really had, and that was 2004, and I pretty much, after I became a Reiki 2 level, I used it every day, and that was in 2005 till now. I still use it every day, and I became a Reiki master in 2020. So that's the longest duration. And then probably the most profound in terms of intensity, like a short intervention, which was very profound, was when I did breath work on the industrial estate. And that was my actually still one and only time of doing a breathwork workshop. And I really must go back and do some more. And it was a 3-hour session, which involved cup of tea, explanation of what we're going to do, blah, blah. The actual breathwork's about an hour and a half. And that I can honestly say that session probably changed my life in about 3 important ways, if not more. So they're like the 2 ends of the spectrum, I would say.
I think those 2 are fabulous examples of what we were talking about in terms of accessibility. Because if we think about Reiki, that's energy healing. And energy is everything. It's everywhere.
Yeah.
So there's no question of needing to go anywhere. All you need is somebody who knows what they're doing to do it and then teach you.
Yeah. And then once you have it, you know, you have it forever, you know, and that's it. Job done.
That's exactly it. That's all you need to do. It's so simple. And of course, breath work, yet again, you know, how much more accessible do you need than breath? It's the very stuff of life. You do it without thinking. All you need to do is find somebody who knows how to use it for certain effects. So I like that. I like that very.
Yes. Yeah, you're dead right. And I hadn't really thought about that before I said it. But I particularly, in a way, find the breathwork side of things completely fascinating for that reason, because we do it every second we're alive. And also how interesting it is how breath takes us into different states of consciousness just by how quickly or slowly we do it. You know, either we do it slowly to relax and center, or we do it in the case of when I did the breath work in more accelerated way, to put you in another different state. And that to me is just fascinating in its simplicity. Amazing.
It is one of the most fundamental things we do to get into meditation, to relax. And actually, it's at the start of every single one of my hypnosis sessions, because breath is the means by which I teach people how to relax.
Yeah.
So it's a vital thing. So when you were talking about it getting you into a different state,
yeah,
and it wasn't to relax you, I understood from what you said.
No.
So that.
Okay, so this so I understand that apparently there are some different approaches to what's generally called breath work. So I can tell you about what I did. I did a technique where you breathe quite quickly. So, and you basically put yourself a little bit out of breath. So from memory, it's I think 5 or 6 quick breaths in and then out. So, like, so you know, and immediately as soon as you do it, it's the type of breathing you do if you're upset, you know, if you're crying, like this kind of thing. So very, no, that's right. It's not. It's so it's stupid breathing, but just breathing in very in and out quickly, and it immediately puts you in your in that quite a heightened awareness state. I totally knew where I was, what I was doing. I wasn't out of it, but after I'd done it for a little while, and a little while was about a minute, so or less probably, I did feel quite spacey. And so the idea is that it puts you in a theta brainwave state where you're awake, you're aware, you're totally in control, but you are slightly more in a dreamy state. So it's kind of opening that unconscious up and enabling the unconscious to process trauma, really, and it'll just let go of stuff. That's the aim of the breathwork session. So you're doing the breathing. My practitioners played very emotive music along with this. Actually, they had handpicked the different songs. And it was a mix of, there was some opera in there, some classical, but there was Adele, there was Eminem, there was, you know, sort of contemporary stuff as well. And so it was breathing, lying down, and listening to the music. And the music was enabling us to bring up emotions. I wasn't doing it consciously, I was just reacting. So the first thing that happened is I got a huge fit of the giggles. I was thinking, okay, that's fine. I'm all right with that. Just let that come out. And I think there's something about being in the theta state also didn't feel very self-conscious, which is really great because then you can let go with what you need to let go of. So to have the giggles, that died down, so that's fine. And then and I was kind of lying there trying not to think, oh, you know, I'm going to feel very smug throughout all of this because I've done lots of healing already, and probably no big trauma is going to come up for me. I'm just going to sail through this in a blissful state of, no, that was not true. So next thing that happened was I got very, very teary, and a lot of sorrow came up through the body. It was very intense. The practitioners were there in the room. They were very much letting us process, but they would intervene. So at the point where I started crying and really huge sobs coming out to the point of kind of screaming a couple of times, which again, I was aware of myself doing, but not to the point of feeling very self-conscious about it. And one of the guys appeared at my side, just held my hand. And I think he said something like, it's safe to feel this now. So they will kind of come in and not intervene, but they will just support if needed. Gave me a cushion to hold at one point, that kind of thing. So, and then, and the idea is you just breathe through. You breathe through the emotion, you let it come, and then it goes, which is what happens, interestingly. So then you kind of, I went back into a kind of a passive state again, I suppose, in between. And then I had a huge kind of rage thing that came out as well, and was able to express a lot of rage that I'd clearly been holding on to as well. And the the funny thing about that is that both the guys that were facilitating the session came, to support me during that. And I was really, shouting, swearing, unfortunately. And there was a point where I kind of sat up and they were holding my both hands like this just to steady me. And I really wanted to say a very bad swear word. And even in that, in my anger, and even in that, a more dreamy state, I was self-censoring and thinking, oh, I can't say that. And they just said, no, you can say it. They knew what I wanted to say. I wanted to say, go on, you can say it, just let it go, just say it and it's done. Anyways, which I did. So that was that. And so by the time I'd done all that, about an hour and a half had passed, which is, I wasn't aware of the time passing. So if you'd said that's an hour and a half, I would have thought, God, that's really quick. And we sort of came round, we returned to normal breathing, had a drink of water, kind of sat up, and then had a cup of tea, and just they said, okay, it's like, had a little chat just to make sure everyone's okay. But the funny thing about it is, as soon as you return to normal breathing, all of that emotion was gone. That was not within me anymore. It was like I knew it had happened, but it was like a dream almost, which apparently is normal, which in itself is quite fascinating, I think. So and I also, after that, for about a day, I had absolutely blinding headache for about 24 hours. And then that went, and I took that as a part of the process, part of clearing out. And yeah, so that was the experience. And after that, I felt a great deal of weight lifted. Yeah.
It seems like a cathartic experience.
Yeah.
Which is reminding me of what many people experience when they're going through memories in a hypnotic state, which of course is going to be similar state to what you're describing in terms of the brain produced. And it is very cathartic because you're releasing all that. I imagine you were exhausted afterwards.
I really was. The headache. Yes. Yeah. I was very tired. Yeah. And they said, you will be, go home, make sure you have something good, have a good dinner, just obviously, you always say, don't you, drink plenty of water after that, and just, and also they said, just give yourself a break as well, because you worked really hard, and it's going to take a while to all integrate, so which I did, just absolutely didn't do anything too difficult for a while. But yeah, it was very profound in terms of its effects over the next couple of weeks, but then over that whole year, probably in various different ways.
I'm just thinking about what you're saying, and how much I'm thinking about how much healing is linked with that part of the brain that our conscious mind kind of blocks out. It's very much that emotional part of us that, in order to function, we kind of switch off. And that's why it's not pretty, because when it's not for the faint-hearted, is it?
No, monsters in there. There'll be monsters, isn't it? That's what it is. There'll be dragons in there, for sure. When I did that session, before we actually did the practical part, the people running the session were explaining to us, this is how it works. And their analogy, which I really like and I've kept in the book, was that the unconscious is like a huge warehouse. And they said, imagine that bit at the end of Indiana Jones, the first one, the Ark of the Covenant they've all been after. It gets hidden in the big warehouse at the end. And it pans out and you see how big that warehouse is. And you know they're never going to find that Ark of the Covenant again, hidden forever. They said, so imagine that's what's in there. And when you do something like this, the unconscious is like, oh, thank Christ, an opportunity to get rid of some of these boxes. And it starts throwing it out, but you don't know what's in there. And there's all sorts of, gnarly, goodness knows what that you've got, like lots of anger, lots of, things that have been repressed, all this stuff. But it's all part of you at the same time. I take that to mean the whole, when we talk about shadow work, as it were, I take it to mean that in that it's none of this stuff is bad. Joking aside about monsters and dragons and what have you, but it's not bad. It's you, and the best thing you can do is shine a light on it and then integrate it into yourself. Not pretend it's not there and that it's wrong and bad. It's we're all human. We've all got this stuff in there.
The key to this, I feel, is to not judge and to accept that not all of you is shiny and sparkly.
Right. Yes.
And gold.
In fact, a lot of you isn't. Indeed.
Yeah. And when we are brave enough to admit that, that is going to make us shiny and sparkly and gold. Because if we don't admit it, we get very tarnished and we lose the sparkle. And we are living in an illusion of who we are, rather than understanding the magnificence of what we are. And it's so important, because when we lose that all too willing judgment of ourselves, which is a fear of judgment from others as well, and it was conditioned into us at a young age, accidentally or intentionally, probably a mix of both in various circumstances. When we lose that, then what we have left is compassion. That compassion is the thing that's going to enable us to sparkle and to be gold again, properly polished, because it's that compassion that's going to connect us with other people. If we can't see ourselves in all of our shades, we're not going to have that compassion.
No, quite.
Not that we might have some because we can relate to other people's pain, but the ability to forgive will be limited. The ability to understand at a deep level other people's behavior will be limited. And that's a shame, because we need so much of that.
Yes, so true. I really agree. And I think it's I also think it's an experience that you identify with more as you just with age, because the more you go on, the more you have done, and recognize also that you yourself have perhaps done some less than perfect things, but you also know that you are not a monster and perhaps you had your reasons for doing it or whatever. But it's more, I think everything becomes shades of grey after a certain period of time. And when you're quite young, it's very easy to be very black and white about this is wrong, this is right. Well, it's not that things aren't wrong and right. It's just that there's often, you can think, oh, I kind of know what happened there, or I can see, I can empathize, or I can forgive, or I can whatever.
One of the things that we're all trying to do as children is work out what the rules are, because we know that some things get us into trouble. So out of self-preservation, we want to know what are the rules.
Yes.
And take this approach. It's very black and white. And I've got this lovely memory of that really brought this home to me. A few years back, I was waiting for a train in one of these, on train stations on the platforms. They have the shelters that you can go in. And so I was sitting there, and it was autumn, and somebody had left, or the sliding doors were not closed. They weren't working, so they were open. And the wind had brought in a huge pile. There was a pile of leaves that was accumulating in one corner, and that was also kind of spreading around. It looked messy. And there was this little girl there who was about 4 years old, and she was absolutely pestering her mother with, who did this? Well, where did these leaves come from? And why are they here? Who made this mess? And there was indignation in her voice. Mother could not understand.
Why is this a thing? Why are you concerned about it?
And she's obviously too preoccupied with something else to even give her the answer, which was actually the wind's blown these in.
Yeah.
She was just being very irritated by this constant, and I looked at this little girl, and I understood exactly what she was saying. Was somebody has misbehaved. They've made a mess. If I did this at home, I would be in trouble. How come somebody else is allowed to do this and get away with it? It was such an illustration of this. And I think we're all that little girl until we begin to outgrow that need to see everything in such stark edges.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's free.
I get that completely. That is exactly the emotion. And you can see that emotion so often with other people when they are angry with somebody else, because really what they're angry at, how dare you have this life choice, or how dare you have done this that I don't approve of with your life, whatever that may be. And really what they're saying is, I wasn't allowed to do that. Why are you allowed to do that? And that's so sad, isn't it? Even if it's, somebody being awful to somebody else because they are, don't approve of their LGBT lifestyle, for instance. The person being mean may not be, want to, feel that they are gay or whatever themselves, but it's still that you're breaking the rules as I perceive them. I wasn't allowed to break the rules in some other way. So it makes me really angry. And I just would, I wish people could reflect on that more, because that's really a recognizable center of that emotion.
It is. I think it's the whole thing, because again, the way that we are conditioned, there are consequences for our actions, and there are always consequences for breaking the rules. And I'm not saying that there shouldn't always be consequences.
Yes, sometimes that's sensible. Yes.
There always are consequences. But the one consequence that sometimes eludes us is that feeling of justice being done. And it is the fairness. It's the fairness. It's things are supposed to be fair, and they're not always fair. It's just the way it is. We have to understand that justice or consequences are not always visible to us. And not only are they not always visible to us, we don't always even understand that consequences have happened. And it's a much more subtle, it's a much subtle process. It's the whole thing about understanding that in fairy tales, there's always a happy ending. And one of the things that makes it a happy ending is that those who have done ill deeds are punished.
Yes.
And we have to trust that if we have been wronged, there will be consequences, even if we can't see them, and that we're not all meant to be avenging angels. That's just the way of the world. But it requires us to grow up, because all of this is incredibly nuanced and subtle.
Yeah.
And it's not the simple world that a 4-year-old would understand, but we're not 4 anymore.
No, quite. Yeah, it's a very interesting point.
Well, we're both thinking very deeply.
Aren't we? It's a very profound conversation.
We never thought we were going to be talking about this,
Mm,
but because this is about healing, and healing is about growth.
yes.
And it's growth that we need to get to, because one of the things that traps us is anger and the sense of unfairness and injustice. And if we can't get beyond that righteous anger, we get stuck. So we've talked about the two modes that perhaps have had the most intense or the longest life-changing effect on you. What do you feel kind of crept up on you? Is there a modality that kind of crept up on you? It was really subtle, and one day you kind of went, oh,
yeah, oh, that's quite, yeah. I'll tell you what that one probably was. It kind of crept up on me, but also is probably the thing that I thought I would not engage with the most. And I thought, that's not for me. And then I tried it, and oh, what a surprise, turns out it works. So when the pandemic started, a friend of mine who I interview in the book, so for what watchers, listeners, I interviewed Anna in the book, by the way. You haven't mentioned that. You're actually in it. It's very important. Giving a very, very fascinating interview about past life regression therapy. And so the book is worth getting for that alone, frankly. Anyway, I also interviewed a psychic medium and a friend of mine called Tiffany. And anyway, so in the pandemic, Tiffany started a WhatsApp group of, which you could join. And she said, what I'm going to do is every day we're going to have a 5 or a 10-minute meditation or an activity or something on WhatsApp. I'll just send you a little video or this is what we're going to do today. It's 10 minutes a day. It's really light touch. But we're going to start with something called a gratitude practice. And I thought, what the hell is that? A. And B, I'm not grateful for the pandemic. Like, what have I got to be grateful for? What have I got to be grateful for? Anyways, I was like, fine, I'll do it. It's fine. So she guided us through this technique. So you're smiling, so I'm assuming you kind of know what this is. It's a kind of an affirmation practice, I suppose you might say, in that you practice feeling grateful for as many things you can every single day. So she would say, Einstein, I don't know if this is true, Einstein was grateful for 100 of things every day. So, so can you be. But you will be grateful for, your washing machine. You'll be grateful for dinner. You'll be grateful for a sunny sky. You'll be grateful for your skin, whatever you want. And the idea is the more things you are grateful for, that you engage into the energy of gratefulness, as it were, which is a kind of a high vibrational energy. And among the energies such as joy and peace and all the good stuff. And so by doing these like very, thank you washing machine, and feeling it, like I'm so grateful, I'm so grateful for my bed, whatever. And feeling that every day, that this will put you into this energy, really. And it does do that. And it's kind of a really silly seeming thing. And you do have quite a bit, I had anyway, a bit of a mental block towards it. This is stupid, fine, this won't do anything. I had all of those thoughts. But I am at the very least somebody who will give things a go, because I think, why not? Might as well. Anyway, but it did work over a period of time. And so her point with this also was, as well as the gratefulness practice, and what she was saying to us is, the more you do this, the more this energy will then enable you to manifest what you want into your life, because you've raised up, you're not kind of down in the dumps, you're not feeling resentful because you don't have things, you are grateful for what you have. And in a way, it's like, you might think, oh, well, that just sounds like an acceptance. You might be accepting things that are bad in your life, but it's not. What it is kind of a radical acceptance of things as they are. And if we radically accept everything as it is, even the crappy stuff, then ironically, we are better poised to change it, because we have that energy. So that's how I would describe it. And she also, in that, in that little group via WhatsApp, she would do like angel meditations with us, and we would go and do angel meditation with Jesus and Kuan Yin and all these other things. So it was quite varied in terms of what she was doing with us, but all with the intention of raising vibration, connecting to angelic energies, gratitude practice. Anyway, after I've been doing this a few months, I really felt the benefit of it. I mean, I was manifesting good, like remarkable at a remarkable rate stuff I wanted, and it was just happening. So in the pandemic was raging on. Obviously, we're in isolation. I was doing this every day. There was a point where wanted to go out cycling more because my son had a bike. He liked cycling. My husband had a bike. I didn't have a bike at that point, and I thought, oh, I'd really, that would be nice. We should go out cycling. I literally just put a little message on my Facebook page saying, does anybody know, where I can get a bike? Shops not being open, blah, blah, whatever. My friend around the corner said, I've got a spare one, you can have it, within half an hour. It was stuff like that. It was just, loads of things. So it was very effective. So that is I didn't expect it to work. It was very good thing.
I was laughing when you began, because honestly, that possibly has been one of the biggest life-changing practices that I
really?
in my life in the last, when did I start? Last year.
Yeah.
Middle of last year, I started this, and I started it around food. So it was reading about shamanism, and they were in the book, they were talking about, blessing everything and as a means of expressing gratitude. And it made sense to me, because the minute we start expressing gratitude, we are feeling love. And I chose to do it when I was cooking, because I wanted the food that was coming into mine and my family's and my dog's bodies to have that energy, that love energy. And so it's I love doing it, because when I'm doing it, it's putting me in mind. Let's say I'm chopping up fruit for my breakfast, and I'm blessing a watermelon. When I'm blessing that watermelon, when I'm giving thanks for it, I'm remembering seeing them growing on holiday in Crete. I'm remembering childhood holidays of picnics where the watermelon was the dessert and was shared out amongst the family, and everyone looked forward to it. I'm remembering all of these things, and that sheer love of life, love of the watermelon in front of me, and everything that it means to me. If I'm, doing the same with sunflower seeds, suddenly I'm driving through Andalusia in Spain and seeing all the sunflowers growing around me. It puts you into a love vibration, and I've extended it to all sorts of things that I do now, precisely for that reason. And it is, I think, one of the best experiences of magic that you can access.
Yeah, it's remarkably profound. Yeah, and you're absolutely beaming when you're talking about that as well, because you can see how meaningful and lovely it is for you. It is such a lovely thing to do, and I also think it goes back to that what we were saying about the shadow and everything, and it's loving, accepting, saying thank you for my anger, thank you for my thank you for my misery, thank you for all of those things as well, because I just think of it as a radical acceptance.
Is, and we know that there are extraordinary people who survived Stalinist camps and concentration camps who practiced exactly this. This is how they got through. And for viewers, for regular viewers, you might recall the interview I did with Alan Hunter, right about a year ago, about gratitude and his book, Gratitude, and referencing amazing people who did exactly that. And it just got them through. Why? Because it puts you in the present moment, in the moment right here, right now. I don't have to think about all the things that are worrying me, upsetting me, annoying me, frightening me. All I have to think about is that I'm sitting here with, in a lovely warm room with light, speaking to you, having a wonderful conversation. Perfect. It doesn't get better than that. That's perfect in this particular moment.
Yeah.
And if we can do that when we're having a nice time, we get into that practice and it gets us through, so that in those dark times, we can think about what we are grateful for. And just a week ago, I had a fever. I wasn't well. I was I was pretty sick, really, really sick. The worst day, I did manage to get through thinking, okay, yep, this really feels quite scary in some respects, but I'm in a comfortable bed. My work schedule has been rearranged, and I am fortunate enough to have my partner who is looking after me, and my dog who's keeping me company. And really, I'll get through this. So it brought me right back to practicing gratitude to help me to calm down. Yeah, it wasn't fun. It was pretty hideous.
No,
but it got me through it.
It's as you say, just focusing on the moment, like, as if you were going to focus on your breath. Yeah, it's another way of doing that. Yeah. And I think it's important to say that this time, I think one of my initial reasons for resisting it intellectually was because up to that point, I'd done lots of healing and magic and things, and I'd always kind of been attracted to things that, were about shadow and everything. And I kind of had slight aversion to what I might call love and light thing, despite being a Reiki practitioner, which is very love and lighty in many ways. But also, there's a lot of stuff that, it can be quite deep and, quite transformational. Anyway, I thought, oh God, this love and light thing's not for me, because I don't really like that toxic positivity thing about, one must think positive all the time, or, blah, blah, blah. But I think what we're saying is there's a very big difference between that and this. This is very much about being in the moment, except, as you say, accepting it for what it is. This is perfect, in whatever way. And there's that. And then there's, that whole other thing, which is not what I'm talking about. But
the whole other thing is like wearing I don't know.
That's basically like pretending things aren't happening. Yes.
It's like you're putting on a plastic gold suit rather than wearing gold itself. You know what it is.
Yeah.
Very.
Yes, it is. Yeah. And I think that was probably the thing that I thought, I don't want to engage in that way of thinking or whatever. But when I realized that's really very much not what it is, then that made total sense to me. And yes, it was very effective.
And also what you said about there being a difference between acceptance at this level and complacency and defeat.
Yes,
and
quite.
This is so different. It's not saying, oh, that's your lot then.
No, far from it, in fact.
Yeah, not about that at all. It's completely different. It's about saying, okay, the whole world is not perfect, but this right here is where I'm going to focus, because this is perfect right here, right now. And rest, I'll find a way to take care of, or somebody will help me deal with the rest. It doesn't mean not aspiring.
No, quite.
It doesn't. It's impossible to be healthy and well and not have aspiration, because aspiration is growth. And we must always aspire to grow. What it is not is the wish list of what I must have in order to be happy.
Quite.
That,
Yeah.
this is different. This is about saying, okay, yeah, it's not perfect, and I have a lot of growing to do. I'd like to grow. Yes. Can I have more opportunities to grow, please?
Mm-hmm.
And right here, right now, this is where I'm at, and this is good. I like this. These are the things that are really helping me, supporting me, creating beauty and comfort in my life. I'm so grateful for these. This is wonderful. And in the meantime, while you're doing that and you're feeling all that love and positivity, what's happening is you are already growing. And as you grow, you are setting the path in motion for more growth. And that's just beauty.
Lovely. Oh, well, I'm glad that resonated as an approach. Yeah.
Yeah, indeed.
Yeah,
Well, that for those who are interested, and I'm sure everybody is interested, because how can you not be? The book that I have been discussing is called The Path to Healing is a Spiral. And here it is.
Yes, yes.
I have a link to that in the description box.
Oh, thank you.
If people wanted to learn more about your work, in touch with you, Anna, how do they do that?
Well, my website is annamckerrow.com, which is McKerrow is McKerrow. And I'm also on Instagram. You can find me there, which is Anna McKerrow. And those are probably the two best places to find me.
Fantastic. I'll make sure there's a link in the description box for that as well. Anna,
thank you
for a marvelous conversation and wonderful insights today.
Oh, thank you so much, Anna, for having me. It's been a pleasure.
And thank you all for watching. And I'm not entirely sure what I'm doing next time, because there's a number of interviews that have all kind of got out of sequence whilst I was poorly. So I shall just say that whoever it is will have wonderful things to tell us about. Until next time, goodbye.